Hello guys, welcome to my channel where stories filled with revenge, moral lessons and love are told. If you enjoy listening to stories that touch the heart and open the eyes, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends and of course subscribe for more. The morning of my wedding should have been the most beautiful day of my life. I had dreamed about it for years. The dress, the flowers, the music and most importantly, the moment when my father would take my hand and walk me down the aisle toward the man I loved. That moment carried a weight of meaning for me. It was not just about tradition. It was about finally receiving the support I had longed for from a father who had often turned his eyes toward my sister, Bianca, instead of me. I told myself over and over that today would be different. Today he would choose me because I was his daughter too. But life has a cruel way of reminding us where we stand in people's hearts. I was sitting in the bridal suite, a mix of nerves and joy fluttering inside me, when my phone buzzed. It was a message from my father. I remember my hands trembling as I opened it, thinking it was just his way of reassuring me before he came to my room. Instead, the words on the screen sliced through me like a blade. "Selena, I can't make it. Bianca's event is today and she needs me. I know you'll understand." I read it again and again, unable to process what I was seeing. My father, my own father, was not going to walk me down the aisle. He had chosen Bianca once again. The sister who had despised me since we were little, who always made sure to outshine me, and who never missed an opportunity to turn him against me. My makeup artist froze when she saw the phone slip from my hand and clatter to the floor. Tears I had promised myself not to shed before the ceremony streamed down my cheeks, ruining the look I had sat patiently for hours to achieve. My bridesmaids rushed to me, their voices a flurry of concern. "What happened? Selena, are you okay?" But all I could manage to whisper was, "He's not coming. He's with Bianca." The room fell silent, heavy with shock. Everyone knew the history between Bianca and me. They knew how she had always manipulated situations to grab our father's attention, and how he, blinded by his favoritism, allowed her to get away with it. Deep down, I had always feared she would find a way to sabotage my wedding, but I never imagined she would succeed in pulling our father away on this day of all days. I pressed my palms against my face, trying to steady my breathing. The makeup artist dabbed at my tears while whispering, "Don't let her ruin this for you." But how could I not? My father's absence felt like the loudest statement of where his loyalty truly lay. He had abandoned me not only as a child when he always praised Bianca over me but now as a bride, at the most vulnerable moment of my life. Melody, my wedding planner, knelt beside me. Her calm but firm voice pierced through the chaos. "Selena, listen to me. Today is about you and Daniel. This is your love story. Do not let your father or Bianca take that away. If he won't walk you down the aisle, find someone who truly deserves to." Her words struck me like a small beam of light cutting through the darkness. But my heart was still breaking. Memories rushed through my mind like a cruel montage. The time I won an award at school, and my father barely clapped while Bianca received roses for a dance recital. The nights I cried to my mother, asking why he didn't seem proud of me. The endless comparisons of how Bianca was prettier, smarter, more ambitious in his eyes. And now, when all I wanted was one symbolic gesture of his love, he had left me once again in Bianca's shadow. I wanted to scream, to throw my bouquet against the wall, to curse both of them for robbing me of the father-daughter moment I had dreamed about. But instead, I sat frozen, trembling in my white gown. Jessica, one of my bridesmaids, touched my shoulder gently and said, "Selena, there's something you need to see." She handed me her phone, and my heart sank deeper when I read the messages. Bianca had deliberately scheduled her charity luncheon on my wedding day. And worse, she had begged my father to attend by feeding him lies that I didn't really care if he came, that Daniel's family would handle everything, that she needed him more. It was all a calculated move, a cruel trap set to ensure my father would miss my day. I closed my eyes and let the betrayal settle inside me like a stone. This wasn't just a coincidence. This was Bianca's final triumph, the proof that no matter how hard I tried, she would always find a way to diminish me, and my father would always let her. As guests began to arrive downstairs, I sat there torn between two worlds, one where I could crumble, cancel the wedding, and let their betrayal define me, and another where I could rise, not for them, but but for myself and for Daniel, the man who had chosen me, who loved me unconditionally. I wiped my tears, though my face still burned with humiliation. If my father doesn't think I'm worth standing by, then I'll find someone who does, I whispered to myself, my voice steadier than I felt inside. That was when Melody nodded, as if she had been waiting for me to say those words all along. Good, she said softly, because you deserve better than this. The door creaked open, and I could hear the murmur of voices outside, guests settling in, music beginning to float through the hall. The moment was approaching, with or without my father. My chest tightened, but a flicker of determination sparked somewhere deep inside me. If Bianca thought she had destroyed my day, she had underestimated me. I wasn't sure yet how I would walk down that aisle or who would take his place, but one thing became clear in that moment. My father's betrayal had cut me. Yes, but it had also revealed something I had overlooked for years. Blood doesn't always mean loyalty, and if I was going to reclaim my happiness, I would need to lean on the people who had proven they loved me, not the ones who abandoned me. The wedding march was about to begin, and the reality of my father's absence pressed down on me like a weight I couldn't shake. I stood in the small room, my heart pounding against my chest, listening to the distant shuffle of guests in their seats and the faint strains of the music drifting through the hall. Every second felt like an eternity. I could almost hear the whispers already forming, the hushed judgments, the pity in their eyes. A bride without her father. A daughter abandoned. I pressed my trembling hands against my dress, trying to steady myself. The gown that had once felt magical now felt like a costume too heavy for me to wear. I thought of Daniel, waiting at the altar with hope in his eyes, unaware of the storm I was enduring upstairs. He didn't deserve to see me shattered. I needed to pull myself together, even if every fiber of me wanted to collapse. That was when the door opened again, and Uncle Victor walked in. He wasn't supposed to arrive until later, but there he was, his tall frame filling the doorway, his eyes soft but firm as they took me in. He didn't need to ask what had happened. The pain on my face said it all. For a moment, neither of us spoke. He simply walked over and placed his hand on my shoulder, steady and reassuring. Your father isn't coming, is he? His voice was low, almost a whisper, but it carried the weight of truth. I could only shake my head, my throat too tight to form words. Uncle Victor sighed, the kind of sigh that carried both disappointment and understanding. Then he looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Then let me do it. Let me walk you down that aisle." My breath caught. The words were so simple, yet they cracked open a part of me that had been holding back the flood. Tears pooled in my eyes again, but this time they weren't only from despair, they were from the sudden realization that I wasn't alone. There was someone who wanted to stand by me. Someone who wasn't bound by obligation but by choice. I stammered, "Uncle, I don't know if I can." It was supposed to be. He cut me off gently but firmly. "Selena, listen. Family isn't always about who shares your blood. It's about who shows up. Your father made his choice, but so can you. And I'm right here." His words steadied me in a way nothing else had. For the first time since I read that message from my father, I felt a spark of strength. I looked at him, really looked, and saw the sincerity etched in his face. This was the man who had attended my school plays when my father didn't show up, who helped me move into my first apartment, who never failed to ask about my life with genuine interest. He had been showing up for me all along. I had just been too blinded by my longing for my father's approval to see it fully. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. My eyes widened as he opened it to reveal a delicate strand of pearls. "These belong to my mother," he said softly. "She wore them on her wedding day. I think she would have wanted you to have them." My hands shook as he placed them in my palms. They were cool and smooth against my skin, carrying a history of love and resilience. For the first time that day, I smiled through my tears. Melody, who had been silently watching the exchange, whispered, "This is perfect. This is exactly how it's supposed to be." Jessica nodded in agreement, her eyes misty as she said, "Selena, you're not walking down that aisle alone. Look around you. You're surrounded by people who love you. Don't let Bianca win." The mention of Bianca sent a fresh pang through me, but it no longer had the same paralyzing effect. Instead of breaking me, the betrayal had awakened a new fire inside me. I pictured her smug smile, the satisfaction she must have felt knowing she had stolen my father away. But what she didn't realize was that in her attempt to ruin me, she had handed me something far more powerful. The chance to redefine what family meant. As Uncle Victor helped me fasten the pearls around my neck, I caught my reflection in the mirror. My eyes were still red, my face still fragile, but there was something new there resolved. I whispered to my reflection, "This is my day. No one is going to take it from me." The music swelled, signaling that the ceremony was about to begin. My stomach tightened, but Uncle Victor squeezed my hand, steadying me. Together we walked toward the grand doors that led to the aisle. The moment the doors opened, a hush fell over the crowd. I could feel their eyes on me, their curiosity sharp. No father by my side, but here I was, standing tall with the man who had chosen to step in when it mattered most. Each step down that aisle felt like a declaration, not of defeat but of survival. The whispers didn't matter anymore. The pity didn't matter. What mattered was that Daniel's eyes lit up the moment he saw me, as if nothing else in the world existed. What mattered was the strength in Uncle Victor's grip, a silent promise that I was not alone. As we reached the altar, Victor kissed my cheek and whispered, "You're stronger than you think." He placed my hand in Daniel's, and in that instant, I felt a shift deep within me. My father's absence no longer defined me. What defined me was the love standing beside me, both in Victor and in Daniel. The ceremony unfolded in a blur of vows and promises, but my heart was present for every word. I thought I might break when the officiant asked who gave me away, but Uncle Victor's clear voice rang out, "I do," steady and proud. And just like that, the wound left by my father's betrayal began to heal, not with his presence, but with the presence of those who chose me. When Daniel and I exchanged our vows, I spoke not only to him but to myself. I promised to love fiercely, to choose loyalty, to cherish the people who stood with me. Because now I understood. Love wasn't about who was supposed to be there. It was about who showed up when you needed them most. The rest of the evening passed in a haze of joy, laughter, and dancing. Guests clapped and cheered, and though I caught glimpses of curiosity in their eyes, no one dared to bring up my father. The night belonged to Daniel and me, to the family we were beginning, and to the family we had chosen around us. As I stood with Uncle Victor on the dance floor for the father-daughter dance I never thought I would have, tears streamed down my cheeks again. But this time they were tears of gratitude. He held me close and whispered, "You'll never be without a family, Selena. Not as long as I'm here." And at that moment I believed him. Bianca's shadow no longer hung over me. My father's absence no longer haunted me. What remained was love, raw and real, shining brighter than their betrayal. A year slipped by, yet the memory of that day still lingered in my chest like a scar that no longer hurt, but still reminded me of what had been lost and what had been found. On the morning of our first anniversary, I sat by the window of our small home, sunlight streaming across the living room floor, and I felt a peace I hadn't known on my wedding day. Daniel was in the kitchen, humming while he prepared breakfast, and I could hear the faint laughter of our friends who had stayed over after last night's celebration. My life looked different now, and so did my understanding of family. I thought back to how certain I once was that my father's approval would complete me, how desperately I had clung to the hope that one day he would see me, really see me, as worthy of his love. But the truth was, when he chose Bianca's event over walking me down the aisle, he showed me the depth of his blindness, and in doing so, he freed me from my endless chase for his validation. What he withheld, I discovered in others. Uncle Victor had become more than just the man who saved my wedding. Over the past year, he became a cornerstone in Daniel's and my life. He visited often, bringing small gifts, telling stories of my grandmother, and offering advice that came from a place of love, not judgment. When Daniel and I argued about the little things, Victor was the voice of calm that reminded us marriage was about compromise, not competition. And when I doubted myself, he was the one who looked me straight in the eyes and reminded me of my worth. But the biggest shift was within me. For so long, I had measured myself against Bianca, living in her shadow, letting her manipulations shape the way I saw myself. When Jessica revealed those messages that proved Bianca had orchestrated the clash of dates, it had hurt, but it had also unveiled a truth. Bianca's cruelty was born of jealousy, not superiority. She had always seen me as a threat, even when I didn't see myself as one. That knowledge changed me. It made me stand taller, speak louder, and live unapologetically. Bianca's presence faded from my life after the wedding. She never reached out, not even to apologize. At first, her silence angered me. It felt like she had escaped accountability. But with time, I realized her absence was its own punishment. She had alienated herself, and while she clung to our father's attention, I built a life filled with people who loved me without condition. Sometimes I still saw pictures of her on social media, standing beside my father at events, wearing her signature smug smile. It no longer pierced me the way it once did. If anything, I pitied her. She had won my father's attention, but she had lost a sister. The surprise came months after the wedding, when my father showed up at our house unannounced. I opened the door to see him standing there, his face older, wearier than I remembered. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. He held a small box in his hands, and when I finally invited him in, he placed it on the table. "I missed it," he said softly, his voice cracking. "I missed the moment I should have been there for." His words were clumsy, but they were the closest thing to an apology he had ever offered me. I wanted to be angry, to throw his regret back in his face. But instead, I found myself strangely calm. "Yes," I said simply. "You missed it." He looked at me then, his eyes searching, as if waiting for me to invite him back into my life. And in that moment, I realized something important. I didn't need his apology to heal. I had already healed. Whether or not he rebuilt a place in my life was up to me, not him. Over time, we began to rebuild in small ways. He came to dinner sometimes, awkward at first but trying. He adored Daniel in a way that made me ache, wishing he had given me the same admiration. He asked about my work, though he still stumbled when the conversation turned to Bianca. I didn't expect perfection from him anymore. What I expected was effort, and for the first time in years, he seemed willing to give it. On our anniversary night, Daniel gathered everyone in the garden for a toast. Our closest friends, Uncle Victor, and even my father sat around the table strung with fairy lights. Laughter floated through the warm evening air. And as Daniel raised his glass, he looked at me with the same eyes that had sparkled at the altar a year before. "To Selena," he said. "To the woman who taught me that love isn't about perfection, but about showing up. To the woman who has given me a year of joy and who will give me a lifetime more." Everyone clinked their glasses, and I felt my throat tighten with emotion. I looked around at the faces illuminated by the lights, and for the first time in my life, I felt surrounded by family. Not the fractured, conditional family I had grown up with, but a chosen family bound together by love, loyalty, and presence. Later that night, I stepped aside to catch my breath and looked at the stars above. I thought of Bianca somewhere in the city, clinging to her games, and of my father sitting in the garden, slowly realizing what he had lost and what he might still regain. But most of all, I thought of myself as the girl who once cried for her father's love and the woman who now stood proud without it. Family, I realized, is not defined by who claims you but by who stands beside you when it matters. And while betrayal had carved deep wounds in me, it also opened space for something greater. A life built on chosen love, a love that never faltered.
Moral lesson.
If there's anything my story has taught me, it's this: betrayal can break your heart, but it can also reveal the truth about who truly deserves your trust. Sometimes the people you expect the most from are the ones who will disappoint you, while those you least expect will show up with strength and love beyond measure. My father's absence at my wedding was one of the deepest wounds I've carried, but it forced me to open my eyes to the people who had been standing by me all along. People like Uncle Victor, my friends, and Daniel's family. We all long for acceptance from those closest to us, but life doesn't always give us the family we wish for. Sometimes it gives us something even better: a chosen family who proves, through actions and not just words, that love is real. If you're listening to this, I hope you know that your worth is not measured by who abandons you, but by who stays. Hello guys, thank you for listening to my story. If it touched your heart, please like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more stories filled with lessons, revenge, and love.